Hello, rambling Rector here. I thought I'd talk to you a little bit about St. Paul. Now, St. Paul is one of those Vegemite or Marmite characters. You either love him or you hate him, and he has certainly many critics. I'm one of his fans, in fact. I'm not necessarily a fan of some of the things that he wrote, but I'm certainly a fan of most of the things that he did. And that really seems to me to sum up St. Paul very accurately. He was, I suppose, by accident, one of the great theologians of our age. And I'm not sure that he really intended to be that way, but he was very able to read and to write, and as such was very able to share his views. One of the things that's really important to understand about St. Paul is his absolute passion for the words of Christ. He was able to listen to what was said, and perhaps he knew he did know a number of Jesus' compatriots, and he listened to them and he was prepared to act on the word of Christ. This was not necessarily a popular view at the time. There were a number of people who were followers of Christ. But what Paul really captured, and you see it all the way through his writings, is some of the immediacy of his faith. He was not content to establish churches and let them manage their own affairs. He was actually much more interested in the dynamism of faith, in active faith, and in evangelization. So a little bit of background about Paul, which again I'm sure you all know, but it doesn't hurt to be reminded. Paul was very anti the Christian faith. He saw that the early followers of Jesus, followers of the way, were terribly, terribly misguided. He didn't see Christ as the Messiah, or indeed anything of any great significance as far as the Jewish faith was concerned. Rather, he felt that they were probably going to draw people away from the faith and from salvation. One of the important things to remember about the Jewish faith is that it's very much a collective thing, whereas Christianity is very much about an individual relationship with God. For the Jews, it was very much about collective responsibility for the whole people and therefore for their salvation. So for Paul, it was very much a matter of if he saw people who were getting out of line, who were moving away from the faith, who were falling to one side, then actually that had implications for everybody else in the faith and not just for Christians. So it was very important, he felt, for them to be brought back into line. This was until, of course, his conversion experience on the road to Damascus, where he was actually going to pursue some followers of the way, some followers of Jesus in Damascus. And on the way, he was struck blind, and he had a vision of the living Christ. And that living Christ asked him not to persecute him anymore. Such was the power of the vision, such was the immediacy of the sense of Christ, that Paul immediately decided that he was going to transform his life and transform his passion and transform his purpose into being a follower of Jesus. And not only that, but to be an evangelist of the very first order. So, what do we have here? Paul was very willing to travel. He was very able to travel, being a Roman citizen, even with a Jewish heritage. He was very welcome throughout the empire, and actually had some privileges accorded to him in travelling and speaking to people that would perhaps not necessarily be available to somebody who was just of the Jewish faith. Remembering too that Roman society in those days was a slave-owning society. Paul owned slaves, and so therefore he was able to travel with a significant retinue of people helping him on his way. So there is this amazing Damascene moment, this road to Damascus experience, which so galvanized Paul that he became a follower of Christ and was determined not to collect up all of the people of the Jewish faith into one body, but actually to recognize that this was a call to faith of an entirely different order. that actually what he was being called to do was to present the case for Christ to all of these people who he met on the way and on the road, because the immediacy of their salvation was paramount in his mind. So rather than trying to stop people from falling away from Judaism towards Christianity, he actually positively encouraged it. And in my next video, we're going to talk about the process by which he did that. And particularly, we're going to make reference to the Council of Jerusalem, which was a very contentious and yet very important innovation, development in the road to the Christian church.